What's happening, YouTubers? I'm working on my 1990 Chevy K1500 pickup truck. The issue was my turn signal arm was basically worn out, so the windshield wipers were very intermittent on how they worked. You know, sometimes they would stop in mid sweep over. You know, they would just not work properly. So I swapped out the arm itself. That part is not too difficult because, you know, it just basically you have to work it into that slot right there. And, you know, not that big a deal. However, for the high beam, low beam mechanism, you know, where you pull the arm back to you to change from high to low beam and so forth, this, hold on one second. Inside here, let me get my light pointing correctly. Inside the steering column, and yeah, just so you know, you do have to disassemble the top part of the steering column to reposition the high beam, low beam actuator. If I can get the light on it, hold on, bear with me just 1 second here. That guy right there, that is a plastic piece that attaches to the little metal arm that goes all the way down, you know, to the high-low beam switch itself. One of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, because it's basically a mechanical arm that allows you to, you know, go from high to low beam. And it's attached via this little piece of crap plastic, which is that guy right there. And this little arm, I know this is difficult, so bear with me. That little bitty arm right there is what is attached to your turn signal arm. So it all has to push and pull basically to, you know, to hit the little rod that goes down to your high and low beam switch underneath your dash. Talk about complicated. Anyway, once you, you know, you have to use a steering wheel puller as well as a wheel lock plate remover, which is basically a compressor that allows this spring, you know, to push down so that you can get this little circlip out, just to remove the whole mechanism here properly so that you can actually see what you're doing down in there. If I can get the beam, yeah, that little thing that looks kind of like a boot. It's got grease on it because you have to put grease on it in order for it to hold in place. There we go. I'm having to hold the flashlight with my mouth, so bear with me. Anyway, to do this easily, you have to remove all of this so that you can feed the plastic piece, you know, from behind it back in here, you know, back behind. I've already put the cover back on, which is underneath the tilt arm right there. Tilt arm has to come off as well, and it just unscrews, so it's not that big a deal. But this piece here, this whole plastic cover, which, you know, you might as well replace because you'll probably destroy it trying to remove it. Not easy to get out of there. Anyway, once you get in there and you can see what you're doing, you have to apply grease to the little actuator plastic piece, feed it from back, you know, back here, then position that little metal rod right on the front of that little plastic piece. So stupid, you know, for such a simple thing that you have to go through all that. And it will not work until you get the cover back on. You know, everything will not work properly as far as that, you know, as far as the high and low beam mechanism. It will not work until this cover is back in place, because it actually helps hold everything in place. Pretty ridiculous. Anyway, I didn't see much info as far as YouTube videos on what to expect or what to look for when you're doing this crazy update. And I don't see any other way to do it. You have to remove the steering wheel. You have to remove this here with those special tools just to be able to see this area clearly. Otherwise you're trying to fish and feed and curse and frustrate, and you already know if you've been trying to do this one. It's just not fun at all. Anyway, I would replace that actuator. You can get those on eBay. That little guy right there, I'd go ahead and replace that if I were you. Replace your turn signal arm. Not very expensive. Neither one of these are very expensive. Other things you might as well replace or lubricate or tighten. While all this is apart, you should check these bolts here. Make sure they're good and snug. You might as well lubricate the bearing. There's a big bearing right behind there. You might as well, throw some grease on it. I just use regular old grease. Just make sure everything looks like it's all there and not broken and not disconnected and not worn out and whatnot. Anyway, this all started just because I wanted my windshield wipers to work properly, which was just replacing that guy right there. Anywho, I know that's probably not as much as most of y'all want to see, but as far as removing and installing this stuff, you can find YouTube videos on that all day long. But as far as this specific thing, I just didn't see much on it, so that's why I'm making this for you guys. And it should be pretty easy from here on back. Anyway, there you go. Follow, subscribe, like, all blah, blah, blah. We'll talk to you later.